Before you decide Rochester is the right place for you, I need to know something. Almost everything you know about the city is probably wrong. Not slightly off, not a little outdated, completely wrong. And I say that because I hear some misconception every week from the people who are seriously considering moving here. And they are in the mental image of the Rochester, built from the city-handed story, bad Google reviews, and assumption about the upstate New York that have nothing to do with the reality. So we are going through the 7 biggest myths about the living in Rochester one by one, and I'm going to give you the actual truth. By the end of this video, you will have the clear picture of the city and then most people who have lived here for years. Hey, welcome back to my channel, and my name is Cam. I'm a local real estate license in Greater Rochester area. I have been helping people buying, selling since 2019 with over 120 transactions completed. And a big part of what I do is work with the relocation client coming from the another estate. And here is the pattern that I see consistently. People arrive here with the list of conscience. Half of those dissolve within the 48 hours being here, and the myth are the persistence, and they are totally wrong. So if you are seriously waiting Rochester as a place to plant root, this is the video that you need to watch before you make any decision. Let's get into the video. This is the one thing I hear the most, and honestly, it is one of that frustrate me most because it scares people out from the city they would genuinely love. Yes, Rochester gets winter. I'm not going to be pretend otherwise. We get snow, we get cold from roughly late November through early March, and you're going to need a real cord and scrapers in a car. This is the truth, but here is nobody actually says. Rochester have 4 full seasons and legitimate seasons. 3 of them are genuinely beautiful. Summer here is warm, green, and low humidity compared to the cities further south, and July in Rochester feels completely different from the July in Washington DC or Charlotte. You are not melting on the way to your car. Falls is stunning in a way that feels like a cinematic, with the leaf kind of color that people drive hours to see in Vermont. And in spring, when it finally breaks in April, feels like rewarded. And I don't know about this year because we had a technically snow on April 20, so maybe sometime you don't get a snow until end of April. Local celebrate like it's an holiday. The winter itself is not what outsider image. It is not the consistent blizzard in the October to the April. It is a season. It has rhythm. People commute, go out, run indoors, and live their full life all winter long. The roads get clear quickly. The community knows how to function it, and after all full winter cycle, most people stop thinking about the winter. It is just became a part of the year. Here is what I tell every client from the out of state. Do not let the idea of the winter stop you from visiting in July. One summer weekend here and this myth is dead. This one genuinely people make laugh once they live here for a few months, and I get where it comes from. Rochester does not have the branding recognition of the Chicago and the Boston. It does not dominate the travel content online, so people are assuming that there is not much to do in Rochester. The reality is almost the opposite of the assumption. On any given weekend in Rochester, you have the options. The Erie Canal Trail system runs throughout the suburbs and gives you the miles of walkable, running, and cycling along scenic waterways. Ontario Beach Park sites on a south shore of the Lake Ontario with the sandy beach and a broad walkway and a carousel that has been since 1905. The Strong National Museum of Play is genuinely one of the most visited museums in a kind of the country, and it draws the family from hour away. The Eastman School of Music, which is one of the part of the University of Rochester, being the world classic performance to this city year-round. And then there is a food, a drink, a culture which people always surprised by. Rochester have craft brewery scenes that punch well above its weight. The restaurant variety, and particularly around the Parks Avenue and the Southways and the East End neighborhood, is real, and you're not choosing between a chain restaurant and one local spot. You are choosing between the dozens of the locally owned place with the actual personality, and you factor that in a Finger Lakes Wine County starts about 45 minutes south from the city, and that is where you can be at the Walking Glens, the Seneca Lakes, and the Tanahawk Falls in about an hour. The idea of the Rochester has been nothing to do start with looks pretty abstract. The difference is that everything is accessible. You don't need to plan for the whole exhibition. You just go because it is so accessible that you can get to any place, any kind you want just in 45 minutes to 1 hour. This is the myth that probably cost the most people the most money, because if you believe all suburbs are interchangeable, you will not do research to find one that actually fits your lifestyle. Let me give you a quick tours of how different this community are. Pittsburgh polished, established and family-oriented, with the Rockville Village Center, high-end dining, the school district that ranks almost the best in the New York State. If you want a top-tier school district and a classic suburban feel, this is the benchmark for you. Price reflected. A Fairport has a canal village that feels genuinely charming, strong schools, and the community culture that draws the younger family who want to connect and character. It tends to be a little more affordable than the Pittsburgh, while still delivering on the things that matters most for the family. On the other side, the Webster is the east side of the options for the space and the value. A bigger lot, quieter street, and a solid schools, and a no-nonsense community feels like attraction people who wants to room for breathe without paying the premium for the village address. And Brighton sit close to the University of Rochester, the strong Memorial Hospital, with the diverse walkable to the urban fields and the appeal and academic health professionals and people who want the proximity to the city without actually leaving it. Greece and Irondequoit on the north side give you the completely different energy, more walkable classic routes, more affordable price points, and a quick access to the Lake Ontario. If you prioritize maximizing what you can get for your money, and you love being near to the water, those areas deserve the serious attention. Victor is nearby, more modern, sit in the Ontario County, has its own tax structure. People who wants the newer construction and a more planned community feels trends to gravitate there. The point is, there is 6 genuine different places with the different personalities, price point, reputation, and the lifestyle. Choosing the right one requires the actual research, and it is worth doing it. This is almost funny to me, because if there is one thing the Rochester wins on the compare to almost every major metros in the entire country right now, it is a commute time. People relocating from New York City area, northern New Jersey, the northern Virginia, and the Chicago suburb, or any major coastal market comes bragged for traffic. They have spent years in it. They have built their entire life around avoiding it. They're choosing where to live based on which highway they can able to tolerate for 45 minutes twice a day. Then they move to Rochester and realize most of the metros area is 15 to 25 minutes almost from everywhere. Now 15 to 25 minutes at 5 a.m. on the Sunday, 15 to 25 minutes during the regular Thursday afternoon commute. Rush hours exist here. It is just not the soul-crushing experience that the people in other markets have normalized. The 490 and 590 expressway move efficiently. The 390 corridors handles the north-south flows of the west side, and because the city is geographically compact, you really have to cross the entire metro to get where you are going. Most people live, work, shop, and send their kids to the school within a 15 miles radius. I have a client tells me that after their first month here, they stop street eating on their commute. They stop listening to the podcast just to survive the drive. They just drove. That is an underrated quality of the life upgrade that does not show up in any cost of living calculator. Here is what people pictures when they think about the upstate New York, a small city surrounded by the farmland with the nothing interested for the hundreds of miles in any direction. And I understand where that image comes from, but it does not match the geography. Rochester sits in most interesting corner of the northeast when you actually look at the map. Drive 45 minutes southeast and you are in heart of the Finger Lakes, Wayne County, one of the most recognized wine region in the entire United States. Drive 90 minutes west and you are in the Buffalo, a city experiencing a real revival with the world-class chicken wings and NFL stadium that is the one of the most electric atmosphere in football. 90-minute drive northeast and you are in Syracuse. Drive 2.5 hours north and you cross the Canada, and now you're approaching to Toronto, a genuine world-class city. Within the 1 hour of Rochester, you also have a Letchworth State Park, which is get called the Great Canyon of the East Side by the people who have actually been there. You have 4 major lakes nearby. You have a ski resorts within the 45 minutes to an hour. Rochester also served by the Greater Rochester International Airport with the direct flight to the major hub. This is not the place where getting out require a 4 hours drive to the nearest real airport. Isolation is wrong word. Rochester is certainly located in a region that have an enormous variety, and it tends to be a people who have never actually explored in who call it isolated. This one has gain of a truth in it, and which is probably why it's sticking around. Rochester doesn't have a rich inventory of the historic home. Victorian era architectural, craftsmen, bricks, colonials, and Dutch colonial and Tudors. If you love old homes character and the craftsmanship, this market is genuinely one of the best places in the country for finding it an accessible price point. But the idea that where nothing else is simply not accurate. The suburban expansion that happened from the 1960s throughout the 1990s left the massive inventory of the ranches, split level, Cape Cod, and the traditional colonial across the variantly even suburb in Monroe County. Colonial across virtually every suburbs in Monroe County. These are not glorious, but they are solid, functional homes that represent tremendous value for the family who want the space and practically over historic charm and rather pay for their own home than renting out. And then there is a new construction tier. Victor in Ontario County has seen the significant builder activities and has some of the most modern floor plan and the finish in the Greater Rochester area. Part of the Penfield, Perrington, Charlie, and Greece also have a newer development pockets where you can get a home built in the last 10 years with the open layout, modern kitchen, and the energy efficient system. So the Rochester market actually offers the range. You can buy a fully renovated 1920 Craftsman in the Southways and the walkable to the restaurant. You can buy a 1970s range in a Webster and have a full access acre lot. You can also buy a new build in a Victor and 3-car garage. That inventory is more deserved than the reputable suggestion. This might be one of the damaging myth of the list because it keeps people from even seriously considering Rochester as an option. It is built entirely on the wrong definition of what makes the city worth living. People equate size with the quality of life, and it is the context that makes more sense. But there is a vision of the big enough to have everything you need and a small enough to actually enjoy it, that the very few cities actually achieve. Rochester Rochester is one of them. The job market here is stable by the major employee in the healthcare sector, education and technology, and the advanced manufacturers that are not going anywhere. The University of Rochester, URMC, Paychecks, Wakeman Food Market, and its headquarters are right here. The Constellation brand, one of the largest wine and spirit companies in the world, also headquartered here. These are the small operations. They employ tens of thousands of people and generate real economic stability. The culture infrastructure is there, a world-class music school, a national recognized science museum, and a thriving arts district. A restaurant scene that reflects genuine diversity and quality. The outdoor infrastructure is there, the trails, the parks, the lakes, the canal system, school district, and in the suburb are almost top performers in the New York State. And there is a thing that is hardest to qualify but must considerably reported by the people who move here for the larger market. You can get a life back. You stop spending 90 minutes a day in a traffic. You stop paying $3,500 a month for an apartment that barely fits your furniture. You stop feeling like the city is working against you. You start having a weekend again. You start having evenings again. You start building something that feels like an actual life rather than a strategy for surviving an expensive city. That is what Rochester offered, not a consolation prize. It's completely different model for how we live here. So where do all of this myth actually come from? Because they are persistent. I hear them consistently, and they do not come from the people who are trying to spread misinformation. Rochester does not have a lot of national media attention. It is not the city for the domestic travel and lifestyle publication or the relocation things pieces. The city that gets covered by the trend is to be one of the explosive city stories, which means the Austin, the Nashville, the Denver, and Phoenix. Rochester story is different. It is the city that have a quality, the stability, delivering quality of life for the decades without making a lot of noise about it. The people who live here tends to like it the way, and honestly, there is not a lot of the incentive for the Rochester local that aggressively market the city, because the traffic and affordability are part of that makes it great. It is because the next boomtown those things would change. But for the people seriously evaluating where to plant the root, the quiet reputation is the problem. It means you are filling in the gaps with the assumption, and the assumption are almost more negative than what reality deserves. The idea here is very simple. Just visit. Walk the Fairport Canal on Saturday morning, have a dinner in Park Avenue, drive through the Pittsburgh on the fall afternoon. See the lake, spend 48 hours here with the open mind, and you will watch the myth dissolve itself. Let me try to give you the version of the Rochester that my clients describe me after they has been here for 6 months to a year, because this is one of the real metrics. Almost universally, people say that same thing. They say the peace surprised them. Not slow in boring way. It's measured, a human. You can actually finish the conversation without someone interrupting you to take a call. You can go to a restaurant on the Friday night without waiting for an hour for a table. You can find a parking lot. You can get a grocery stores and get back under 20 minutes. Those sounds like a small things until you realize they are adding up the multiple hours of your life every single week. And they talk about the green space. Rochester and its suburb have a parks, trail, and water access. In a way, the everyday fabric is the way it is genuinely unusual. You don't have to plan for a hike trip. You can drive 5 minutes from your home on Tuesday evening after works, and you can still have a good hike. They talks about this scene of the community in the suburb. These are the places where people know their neighbors, and the school communities are tight-knit, where the local businesses get real support. It is not a logistics or manufacture. It just happens when you live in the city where the places allow people actually invest on where they are. And they talk about the financial breathing room. When your housing cost is not consuming 45 to 50% of take-home pay, something saved. You start saving, you start building equity, you start making choices based on what do you want rather than what you can barely afford. This feeling is harder to put in the number on, but it changed everything. So there you have it. 7 myths about the Rochester and 7 reasons reason why real version of the city is a lot more interesting than the reputation. If you're seriously thinking about making a move to Rochester and you want to figure out the suburbs fit your lifestyle, your budget, your goals, I would genuinely love to talk. And I do this every single week with the relocation client from all over the country. I can give you a real picture of what to expect before you get on the plane. You can able to reach me out through the link on the description below, or find me through the Living Rochester Suburb, my local content brand focused on exactly this kind of real, useful information about the greater Rochester area. If you're watching on TV, you can scan this QR code right here and you will get direct access to my calendar. Don't forget to drop your comment below if this video changed how you feel about Rochester, and also if you know someone who has been holding off on considering this area because of one of those myths that I talk about on this video, share this with them. They deserve the honest version, and I will see you in next video.